5.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you on the Mike Francesa channel on the Bet Rivers Network on YouTube. I didn't expect to be on today before the Mets played, but obviously it has already been a very, very busy day with the Jets proceedings and everything that has gone on with the Jets. I listened to their hastily put together press conference, if you want to call it that. I heard from their new coach. I heard what has been said so far today. And let me tell you what I agree with and what I don't agree with. First of all, as you probably know, last week after that debacle in London, which followed the debacle against Denver, games that not only were winnable, but should have been won, I said, I can't watch it anymore. I had a bad feeling going forward. I said if it were me, and I admitted that it is a very limited process in terms of availability. When you make a change at coach or on the coaching staff in season, you do not have a lot of options here. But I felt it was a dire situation. Nobody likes calling for somebody's job. I don't know Salah personally well. This has nothing to do with him as a person. This has to do with him as a head coach. He was an awful head coach. He has been an awful head coach. He deserved to be fired before this. And what he did this year deserved really set him up to be fired. When he has to make adjustments in a all-world quarterback's normal way of going about business because he cannot hold his own players accountable, it tells you how inadequate he is. It was time. Well, how this unfolded, I'm not sure, okay? We'll try and piece it together. I don't have all the facts. I don't know who does. But let me tell you what we do know and where we are and what I am happy about and what I'm not happy about. I thought Salah should go. He's 20-36. The team was terribly prepared. We've been watching this. Everything he did as a defensive coordinator or a leader of the defense was excellent. Everything he did as a head coach was inadequate. Now, I also stated in no uncertain terms that Hackett had to go. He's still here. I even said, I don't think they'll fire the head coach now. And I would live with the head coach changing his offensive way of doing business, even though I did not feel that would solve the problem completely because I felt you needed to do both. Get rid of the offensive coordinator and get rid of the head coach. They got rid of the head coach. Now, you're starting to see things surface now, probably coming out of a very unhappy Salah camp. He's going to people in the media. I know he's gone to people in the media already. With a story that, and I'm not saying it wasn't accurate, that he was about to make a change in the play calling. And it may have included firing Hackett. It definitely included Hackett no longer being the leader of the offense nor the play caller. Now, you know that was not going to sit with Aaron Rodgers. And we all know that Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a high amount of command for a player. He has extraordinary control of this franchise right now. They gave him the keys to the kingdom. He's been in charge. Like I told you, when he went wherever he went for that pilgrimage and didn't come here where he belonged, it was a terrible message. People have harkened back to that today, the same people who told me I was overreacting when I made a big deal about it when it happened. It was a big deal because it sent a terrible message. It sent a message as to who was boss. And that message has been sent time and time again, and it was sent again today. Because what should have happened is Woody should have sent Salah packing and Hackett packing. And if, as I assume, and I'm going to make this assumption, that Rodgers stayed in the way of Hackett either being demoted or fired to the point where he got Salah ousted, I don't know that. To the point that it wasn't Woody's decision and it was Rodgers who went and said, if it's between Hackett and Salah, I want Hackett. I don't know that. You might assume that, but I don't know that. What we do know is Hackett's still here. And you just heard the new head coach, who is the former defensive coordinator, which I'll get to in a minute, state that there will be no changes in the staff. And he didn't think there would be any changes in the responsibilities, although they would do a big examination of every part of the process in the next 36 hours. Hey, that's not going to change things if the same guy is calling the plays. Now, there's other reports out there today that Salah was going to turn the play calling over to Downing. Todd Downing, his passing game coordinator. Again, we don't know if that's factual or not. Maybe it is, maybe it wasn't. That Salah had finally seen the light go on and realized Hackett was a terrible hire. Well, we could have told you that from the beginning. But he's Rodgers' guy. We know that. The only thing keeping Salah here and Hackett here in the offseason, I believe, was Rodgers. Now, a couple of things. I've heard a lot of people say today, hey, you know what? The Jets are 1 or 2 plays away from being 4-1. If they were 4-1, everybody'd be happy. No, they wouldn't. I sat here on Sunday and said to you, if they had won these 2 games and played like this, I would still call for their heads. Why? Because the Jets are not running an offense that they can live with. They also are not running an offense that Aaron Rodgers can survive in. He's going to get hurt very soon playing in this offense. They cannot run the ball at all. They cannot throw the ball downfield at all. They have miserable communications between the quarterback, who is an all-world quarterback and the most accurate quarterback I've ever seen, who has looked totally inaccurate the last couple of weeks, and his receivers, to the point where it is cost them ball games. There, you saw a play where he threw the ball. He had Wilson. He thought that there was going to be a change in the route. He had Williams, but Williams let the defensive back keep him from getting inside him and being able to catch the ball, and he made the interception. The bottom line is this offense has been broken. It had to be changed. I don't care if they were 4-1. It's still you would wish they were 4-1. The only reason they're in those games is because their defense, and their defense, coached by Salah and the now, as of this moment, head coach, who has done a good job as defensive coordinator, has been a top 5 defense, and it's a top 5 defense with no Reddick, with no Mosley, with no Johnson, having given Huff away and had some injuries in the secondary. And it's still been a top 5 defense for those who think that defense doesn't have terrific talent, which it does. Did they give away a run plugger they shouldn't have given away? Yes. Are they as good against the run as they used to be? No. Are they still a good defense? Very, very solid defense. Not a great defense. But they could get better. Remember, if they're not getting Johnson back, I figured they were either going to add a player or do something with Reddick, which will improve their defensive front. And get Mosley back, and just the one thing this defensive staff was able to do. Now, I don't know how much of that is Salah and how much of that is his then defensive coordinator, now head coach. They were good at developing secondary defenders into excellent role players. That is a strength they had. It was a pronounced strength. They also game planned well against very good quarterbacks and very good receivers. Now, as I stated, your options are extremely limited when you look at it and say, I am not letting this season crash and burn. Question one, did Saleh deserve to get fired? Absolutely. He was a terrible head coach. The team was never prepared. It never started quickly. It continues to be plagued by miscommunication, bad sideline communication, terrible game management, all kinds of penalties that are never corrected, and game planning on the offensive side that was just abysmal. He's not an offensive coach. I understand that. But he's the head coach. I heard someone say today, well, Salah had nothing to do with the offense. What do you mean he had nothing to do with the offense? He's the head coach. He has something to do with everything that has to do with the football team. He's the head coach. He was not hired to be the defensive coordinator. Then you can make the statement that he has nothing to do with the offense. Otherwise, it is a dumb statement to say that the head coach has nothing to do with the offense. He can't not have anything to do with the offense if he's the head coach. That was the problem. He was a head coach who had no idea about offense. And he had inept people thrust on him. Now, was he about to make a change? Did he want to bring Arthur Smith in here in the offseason? I don't know. I've heard that. Was he about to turn the play calling over to somebody else? I don't know. I've heard that. Was he about to get rid of Hackett? I don't know. I've heard that as the reason he got fired. Now, remember a couple things here. Number one, Woody didn't hire Salah. Don't think that doesn't play a part in this. He was off being the ambassador, and his brother hired Salah. That's a factor. It's a factor in their relationship. It's a factor in his prolonged employment. Now, they wanted to make a change. The defense coordinator, being a good soldier, clearly had admiration, and I'm going to think respect for Salah as a defensive coach and for his boss. That's who brought him here. But he's not going to turn down being named head coach. No one is. That's what they're in the business to do. So now he's the head coach. And he gets up and he makes the same statement over and over. We're going to look at it. We're going to look at the process. We're going to look at everything. We're going to look. But he did say things that you didn't want to hear, which was, we're not making any changes in coaches, in responsibilities. That's bad. That can't last, because that means who's fixing the offense. Now, here's why I don't like this move today. Number one, you're not only taking Salah out of the defensive game plan now, out of the defensive operation now, you're taking the defensive coordinator out of the defensive coordinator role and making him a head coach, which is a completely different job, and one that takes away from what he has to do in terms of running and operating his defense. Does he have a guy in that room strong enough to be him now? I don't know that. I don't think this is a very strong staff. I don't know all the guys on this staff. These staffs have changed so much now. There was a time I knew a lot of the assistants. There's so many different assistants now. I don't know all of them. Is this a strong staff? I don't think so. Now, that hurts. That's one reason why I would have left him where he was. Is it hard to go bring a stranger in? Yes. But there were a couple of ways to do this. Now, nobody was going to bring Frank back in as a head coach when he's been fired twice in 18 months. But that doesn't mean you couldn't bring him in as the offensive coordinator and to fix this offense. Also, you had Vrabel out there who could have stepped in as head coach. And I know this one sounds crazy to people, but I think it would have been a smart short-term choice. I would have made a call to Pete Carroll, who wants to coach again. I don't think Pete Carroll would have turned it down. I think he would have looked at that team and said, I think I can win with that team. I can go to the playoffs and have some fun. And Pete, from what I hear, wants to get back in. I know he's not a baby, but he's in very good shape. He's lively for his age. And he's a good coach. He's become a good... When he coached the Jets, he wasn't a good coach. He was an immature guy who wasn't ready to be a head coach. Now he's a good coach with a lot of wins and a lot of success underneath his belt. I would have looked at both those guys. I would have looked at Vrabel, who I think is a very good coach. And I would have looked at... And I don't know where their responsibilities are right now, what they're tied up in, and they might be consulting. I know Reich is consulting. My understanding is it's something you could get out of. And there probably are other guys we could look at in these roles. But my point is I would have gone outside the organization for offensive help in the offensive room, especially in the terms of getting this offense turned around. Listen, there is a huge problem with the blocking on the offensive line. The offensive line is pass blocking at a good level. It's a new offensive line. A lot of guys, including a Hall of Famer at left tackle, who is a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker, but still is a basically fixture in the Pro Bowl and as an All-Pro. They have not been together a long time. So how they were coached is very important, and they have not made a commitment. You know how you make a commitment to the running game? By going at it and pounding the running game. And going in and practicing and pounding the running game until they understand that their job is to move people. These players have not been held accountable to get together as a unit, to not make mistakes, to move the other team, to do the things that offensive lines do. Has Hall gotten disgusted and down on himself? Yes. Is he a back who should be getting the numbers he's getting? 65 carries for 190 yards? No. Do I blame him? Yes. Has he had any time has he had any room to run? No. They are awful. They have no running game. And the only offense they can run is quick passing. They can't even run a play fake adequately without Rodgers taking a vicious hit. If he doesn't get rid of the ball inside 2.5, he is a dead duck. This can't continue. They have too much talent on this offense for it to play this way. Rodgers is an all-world. I understand he's going on 41. He's an all-world quarterback. He's one of the great quarterbacks of all time. Hall is a very talented player. So is Wilson. These guys are so lost, it's ridiculous. So is their left tackle. And we don't know yet about some of the other guys on the offensive line, but I just gave you 4 on the offense that are big-time talents. Not to mention, listen, I'm not a Lazard fan. He does stupid things, and he drops the ball too much. Mike Williams, if he's healthy, you know he's going to make plays. Would I make a trade for Adams if it makes sense? Yes. Would I get Reddick in here? Yes. What was the GM off the hook? The GM's gotten off the hook here. Do they have a talented team? They do. Listen, They have done nothing offensively, and they're a couple of plays from being 4-1 because their defense has played well. And Rodgers still has, he has played for him so poorly, it's scary, and he still has 7 touchdown passes. That's without doing anything. He has more interceptions than you used to see. How many games do you see him? I mean, you had a better chance of seeing it in the clips than you do him throwing a pick six, which he did last week. And 3 interceptions in a game. This is a guy who would go months without throwing an interception. And he's been unbelievably inaccurate. Like I said, the Jets were the only team capable of making Rodgers look bad at the position. That's how talented he is. And I think, and listen, I have no respect for Woody as an owner. None. The bottom line is, this was the right move at the right time. Their season is on the brink. I felt it. Hopefully he felt it. I don't know if that happened. I don't know if it was because he was going to move on Hackett and Rodgers blocked it. Rodgers shouldn't have blocked it. What I would have done if I were Woody, if I were the GM, or I was the now interim head coach, I would have gone to Rodgers and say, let me ask you something. You like throwing pick sixes? You like throwing 3 interceptions and looking like a bum? You like getting hit the way you've been hit the last couple of weeks? Well, let me put somebody in there who can fix this offense and get rid of your friend. And I don't care what you did in the past. I don't care who else was an influence. This guy is a bad football coach. And he is killing us. He can't lead us. Now, you either buy in or you understand you're basically going to be here a very short time. You want to bang heads? We'll bang heads. You want to go out in an awful way, or do you want to go out and have some fun and do it upright? Well, let me fix this offense, and you help me fix it. I'll take your input on who comes here, but Hackett's over. And that should have been the discussion. Case closed. He's still an employee. I understand you have to when you bring a guy like him in. When you bring a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers to the team, you're taking with it their leadership, the fact they're going to rule the room, the fact they are going to run the show and run the team and impart their presence on everybody. You want that. But when it's saving someone who is inept, you heard what Sean Payton said. That's what he said publicly. Did you want to hear what he said privately? You know how bad Hackett was? I'm not trying to kill Hackett, but let's be honest. Look at the product. They're not running an offense. And they're doing that with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. It has to change now. They can win this division. They can easily, their defense is so much better than Buffalo's, it's not worth discussing, but Buffalo has more offensive weapons and obviously a quarterback who's a great player in his prime. But they're vulnerable. Miami's a mess, and New England's nothing. This division is so winnable, it's scary, and I would think even Woody knew it. And he made the move. So listen, don't feel sorry for Salah. He had his chances here. He did not. He's a defensive coordinator. Go get a job next year as a defensive coordinator, and you know what? He's really suited to the job. Then you can cheerlead his defense and not worry about anything that goes on otherwise, because he never worried about anything else that went on anyway, and that wasn't his job. And that's why I don't like moving the defensive coordinator now into the head coaching spot because how do I replace him? I need him there. And with this coaching staff, I can't have him do both. He's going to impact his defense negatively by his presence being used elsewhere. That's if he even has the ability to impact those parts of the team. I don't know if he's a leader of men or not. You're going to know that in 10 minutes. Can I tell it by what I heard so far? No. Did I like what I heard so far? Not particularly. I would have liked something that didn't sound like it came out of a tape. You know, it was like one message over the same over and over and over and over. Listen, he's only had the job a couple of minutes. People say good things about him. I don't know him. You know what? You don't know. You don't know. I'll use the words that the late Rick Majerus, God rest his soul, used to always say to me. And Rick was about as smart a coach. I mean, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of smart coaches, and Rick Majerus was one of them. And Rick Majerus used to say, it's 2 feet to the right when you slide down the bench and become a head coach in basketball. But until you do it, you don't know if you can do it. You don't know if you have the voice for it. You don't know if you have the head for it. You don't know if you have the heart for it. And that's why coordinators are always a gamble, because you don't know who's going to grow into that great leader. The guy you didn't know could blossom into that great leader and became that great leader, who's just a natural leader of guys and who just is suited to being the leader. The head coach doesn't just worry about the defense that he's been worried about every day and running that room and running those players and running those assistants. Now he's got to worry about everything. Now he's got to worry about every off-the-field problem. Now he's got to worry about the owner. Now he's got to worry about salary cap. He's got to worry about the general manager. He's got to worry about anything that impacts his team. It is a completely different job. And to make that move in the NFL in the regular season, while they will do it and give him a very limited desk, meaning they will not put all the issues that usually go to a head coach who comes in and gets the job and gets a whole off season to grow into it. They will not put all that stuff on his desk tomorrow. They won't put salary cap and all the different things that normally a head coach will deal with, personnel and everything else. That they won't give him that in day one. But you'll know in day one whether he can command the room and whether he can command the coaches. And remember, one of the biggest things any good head coach will tell you is, I don't have time to coach the coaches. If my coaches can't work independently, A, I haven't programmed them right. I haven't taught them correctly. I haven't imparted my philosophies to them properly, because once I've done that, I don't have to babysit them. And that has to be how a staff works. When it doesn't, you get the product that you've seen on the field with the Jets. You get a product that is good on one side of the ball and completely broken on the other side of the ball. And that broken at 2-3, which, yes, could be a field goal by Zerline from winning the Denver game, and a pass play to either Wilson or Williams that could have made the Jets a winner over Minnesota. At 4-1, I would be telling you the same tale, because the offense is broken. They can't run it. They can't throw it down the field. And you can't win in this league week in, week out if you can't do that. Look at Kansas City. They lost their number 1 and number 2 wide receivers. What'd they do? they retread a guy who now last night goes for 130 yards on 9 or 10 receptions. And they dust off a running back who's been forgotten for years when they lose their running back. So they lose Rice, they lose Pacheco, they lose Brown. And what do? They got now Hunt running for 100 yards. Smith-Schuster going for 130, making huge plays all over the field. Why? Because the head coach and the entire staff are a well-oiled machine behind a big-time quarterback. Well, you have the quarterback. What you don't have is the well-oiled machine. That's why Andy Reid is Andy Reid. And his staff has been coached that way, and he has a terrific defensive coach who he can turn his defense over to in Spags. So everything works. This can work here. There's plenty of talent. But they have got to get a new voice, and they have got to have a new commitment in the room offensively, or Rodgers is never going to see November. I'm surprised he's not already been knocked out of the games with the way he's been hit. But he can't stand in the way here. He can't play prima donna quarterback and stomp his feet and get his way to save a guy who is killing his offense. Step back if you're Aaron Rodgers and look at this realistically. Turn on the game tape and look at that and tell me who that quarterback is and tell me you like what you see. And then realize the only way that's going to change is if the guy who's running the offense isn't there anymore. So the job was half done. They really screwed up if they don't change the rest of it. They've already committed by elevating a guy, which is the normal thing. But most of the time, remember, when they go to an interim coach, the season has already been lost. They do that so that they can do whatever they need to do. Get rid of staff, get rid of veteran players, look at other players, do things that get them ready for next year. That's not what is being done here. This is being done to salvage a season, which is why Woody should have gone outside the organization and brought in a capable man to run it. I am not saying that the defensive coordinator cannot slide over and be a successful head coach. He might be. I think it's probably a long shot rather than a sure shot. But it's possible. But there's also no way that the defense is not going to be hurt by the loss of him, who now he has a lot of other responsibilities, including offense, and the loss of Salah. That's why I would have left him there. And I would have changed the offensive coordinator and brought in someone to lead the team who would have led it enthusiastically and taken it, not only to say, I'm going to show everybody that I still have a lot left. That's why I wanted Carroll. And I'm going to bring a love of football and a passion to it and an opportunity where I know I can get a big run out of this team. I got a defense in Aaron Rodgers. I just got to fix it. It's got a flat tire. Well, it's got two. They didn't do that. They should have done that. They did it part way. But if Rodgers protected Hackett, he cut his own throat. It doesn't sound like anybody else is going somewhere, so I'm going to hope that there is some epiphany in that room, but I don't believe it. I don't think it's going to happen. Because I heard that guy say, I heard Jeff say, hey, I don't expect any changes in staff or responsibilities. That was a blinking red light. Not only that, it was like a siren. Because That's not going to work. That's not going to work. They need a huge adjustment. And now they need to make, and you could see where the parting of the ways came. When Salah went in there and talked about how, we're going to have to go away from what has been Rodgers' bread and butter at the line of scrimmage. And then Rodgers says, well, that's one way of doing it. The other way is to hold players accountable. You knew they were no longer on the same page. And I said to you, that's a fireable offense what the head coach did. And that was the beginning of the end for him. But it's come every day for him because he was never equipped. He was a defensive coordinator and a cheerleader. All he cared about was his defense doing well, that he could brag about it. And he never worried about anything else. And that was the reason why he's no longer a head coach. And has a 20-36 record. And was 2-3 with Aaron Rodgers. So I thought Salah should go, and he's gone. But Hackett had to go. He still has to go. They could fix this all in the next 36 hours. I understand now they've named the head coach, so they're not backing off that move. They're going to have to hope now that somebody can be a defensive star in that room to replace the defensive coordinator who now is assuming the head coaching role. That's a long shot. Otherwise, the defense is going to take a hit. Because Salah was a positive with that defense. He was involved in the orchestrations of that defense and the game planning, and they're going to miss that. And they still need desperately to bring a qualified offensive coach into that room and fix that offense with Aaron Rodgers working with an experienced offensive mind. And let me just say one other thing. I keep hearing Belichick. Belichick, who's going to have all kinds of opportunities when this season's over. Maybe the Cowboys if they fail. Maybe the Eagles. Jacksonville's being mentioned in a very prominent way. He despises the word Jets. He will never coach the Jets. So he would coach the Giants under the right situation. He would never, ever, ever wipe his feet on the Jets. He hates the Jets. So don't think for a second he's ever going to do that. Do not bring his name up again with the Jets. It's never going to happen, ever. So that shouldn't even be a consideration. Can they go get a big coach next year? Yes. Is that the issue right now? No. The issue right now is this year and a winnable division and a chance to have football success with this team if they will make the right moves. They made one, make the other. We'll see you after the Met game.